What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Andrew Cooper. Welcome out to the Quick Out Fantasy Football Show. It is NFL Week 3. Coop, my friend, how are we doing?
Doing great, brother. I remember when this show was just you and me recording on some like scrappy equipment. I had my mic like standing on an ironing board. And how many times, John, did we record this and have it not record on us?
Oh, a couple of times.
At
We
least
do
a couple.
we do the show for an hour. You'd be like, "How did it sound?" I said, "Didn't sound like anything because it didn't answer." So we'd have to jump back on at some point later in the day, redo everything that we did there. Yeah, we've now come a long way.
Right,
I'm
come a
actually
long
glad
way.
we turned this into a video show, honestly,
Yeah.
so we can interact with all of you out there than just like the pre-recorded podcast. It's a lot of fun being able to answer your start sit questions, helping you guys hopefully win in your fantasy football leagues, your betting leagues, your DFS leagues, whatever you're into here. Allow Coop and I on a Wednesday afternoon to bring you some information you guys might be looking for.
That's right, dude. It's awesome. And it's good to have people in. And, we got a fancy intro and stuff now. Come a long way, man. But still, we've come a long way in the football season. Week 13 is here. That's the beauty of NFL football is that sometimes with some of these other sports, you get in like the slog. There's so many games and, there's not a new storyline for each game. But for the NFL, every single week, crazy stuff happening, things moving around. Some of the biggest stars either coming back, leaving. So why don't we get into some news real quick and then we'll hit on to the matchups.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously the biggest news before about 15 minutes ago was the Jonathan Taylor injury with the thumb. Going to miss 2 to 3 weeks now, we're expecting. Happened kind of randomly, right? We didn't really hear anything after the game about that injury. Kind of popped up yesterday. And now fantasy managers, I saw someone tweet out that Zach Moss was one of the more recently higher dropped players in fantasy as of a week or so ago. So now everybody's scrambling to the waiver wires to re-pick up Zach Moss if he was available to him there, because now he goes back to being an RB1 in fantasy football.
Right. And like, honestly, the people that drop Zach Moss shouldn't really be kicking themselves because it's no different than at this stage dropping right now, obviously it's different, but a week or so ago, we saw Jonathan Taylor play 88% of the snaps, right? This guy wasn't even playing. So it was no different than dropping Elijah Mitchell or really any handcuff that, Tyler Algier, anyone that we've seen kind of pop off in the past when the starter was hurt, no different than that. So don't blame yourself if you drop Zach Moss. If you did get him off waivers, though, got to be feeling good. They've already come out and said they think he can get back in a couple games, but you're going to get probably at least 2 games of Zach Moss. And they said they're not bringing anybody else in. They're not going to sign anybody. They're just going to lean on Zach Moss. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. We've seen the usage, the ability. His impact in the passing game was ridiculous earlier on this year as well. And brings some more life maybe to Gardner Minshew in their matchup this week against Tennessee, where tough run defense, obviously, but a defense you can throw against. So now you're just adding another element there to that passing offense. Again, not that there wasn't the added pass element with Jonathan Taylor, but Moss was obviously a very capable pass catcher earlier on this year. I mentioned that was the biggest story until about 10 minutes ago because Aaron Rodgers has officially had his window activated to return from IR. He is going to potentially beat the return deadline for torn Achilles by like 6 months if he comes back within the next week or two. I mean, listen, we talk all the time. There's advanced medicines. There's different treatments. Some teams don't want their players going out for some of these more riskier surgeries. He had a lesser invasive procedure done that allowed the healing to be done quicker. Now, is that gonna mean that it's gonna stay intact? Is he gonna be fine? But he's also come out and said his return will really depend on how he's feeling and the success of the team. The Jets have no chance of making it. He's not going to go out there and put himself at risk. But wild to think that Aaron Rodgers, after tearing his Achilles on the first drive of the first week of the NFL season, could be back already before the end of the year.
Yeah, the earliest one I've seen was Terrell Suggs, and he would beat that by like a couple months, dude. And I'll tell you, I will say this, at least with the position he plays, like it's not like he's covering guys. He's not returning punts. This isn't Kevin Durant here. Like to some degree, as long as they get the ball out of his hands quick, he can just hang back there and throw. Now, I will say this, Robert Saleh clarified the situation here, basically said that he's cleared for functional football activity, were the words that he used, but not to actually play football. So basically they're saying this guy can go out on the practice field, throw the ball around, see how that feels, do things like that, but he's definitely not ready to play ball. And I think what they're going to do is if Tim Boyle and the gang can win 3 games in a row here and keep them in the hunt at all, then maybe he'll come back and play. But,
Right.
A lot of times what you see is they say, okay, you know what? How many games are left? 5 games left. We'll activate him. If we don't win the next 3, then he just doesn't play at all. So it's not that crazy big of an announcement here. In my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think it's more so just the fact that he's coming back. I mean, just that's the big announcement to me there. Love seeing Rex in the chat. Jared's in the chat here as well. If you guys have any questions for us, comments, you want to just throw some of your own thoughts out there, go ahead, get in that chat here. Coop and I are more than happy to interact, have some fun with everybody here today. Jets offensive line stinks. I agree. I mean, they should have been better, but he's been hurt. Tough. Another reason probably to, if you're the Jets, take it back. It's good to know that you're ready to go. That means next year, then you're really ready to go. But don't need to force it.
If you want an example of what it would look like, Jared, with him back with this offensive line, go look at clips of Ben Roethlisberger's last year or so, where it was basically volleyball. Like they would shotgun snap him the ball, and he would just quickly go like that to Deontay Johnson. He had the quickest time to release in the league by 0.4 of a second, which is crazy because Tom Brady was in the league, and he has been the quickest time to release guy forever. And Big Ben was just chugging it. So that's exactly what it'd be. It would literally be snap, throw all the way down the field, probably to Allen Lazard all the time. Rex has an interesting question here, John. What are your thoughts on this? He says, completely random season-long question for y'all. What are your thoughts on putting position restrictions in on leagues? So say, a league where it's like you can only have 5 running backs.
I mean, a league like that, it's 14 teams. It's terrible. Absolutely hate it. Unless you have a lot of extra bench spots or IR spots availability, having a positional restriction limit is super tough because you're going to need to be able to switch these guys out. You're going to have guys on bye weeks. You're going to have injuries pop up where, you're going to need to roster some of these guys here. Imagine if you could only roster 4 running backs and the injuries that the running backs have had, some guys that are out just for a week or two. Would you be forced to drop Kenneth Walker here this week because, he's going to miss 2 weeks and you need to pick somebody up, but you don't have anybody else you can drop. So he's the guy to drop. I'm not a fan of positional limits. You should allow your managers to roster their team, build their teams how they wish. Right. That's the really whole point of it all. Someone wants to have 10 running backs. Well, then that's their case. You guys, you as a member of that league should do your best to prevent them from getting 10 running backs by picking up some of your own or allow them to have the worst one. So, I am not in on he's the one guy that rostered 6 quarterbacks. That's fine.
Good. That's fine.
How they want to do, then that's how they want to do it. But I'm not going to put a limit on the positions there.
Exactly. I mean, and to me, it's insulting, to be honest, for the commissioner to say you guys can't handle this. It's like if you went to the bowling alley and your buddy puts up the bumpers and he's like, you guys can't play this game the way it's supposed to be played. We're going to have to make extra rules. The one time I will say that you need it is not even in fantasy football, but in something like fantasy hockey, right? Where it's like if you can do daily start fantasy hockey and goalies are scoring points and somebody takes all the goalies and is starting the goalies every day. Okay, yeah, there you go. Adam Bernard saying the same thing in the chat. Fantasy hockey, I understand. Fantasy football, no.
I got 4 goalies in our FSGA hockey league, though, Adam. So I'm feeling good being able to rotate the goalies in and out there and get those points. It's a points league. You need the points. What are you gonna do?
Well, that's the thing. It's a limit of 4 where you can rotate. That's right. Sure. If somebody has 10 and is starting a goalie every day, that's whack. So that's the only case. But This is a fantasy football show. We're messing up the algo. We're messing up the algo with the fantasy hockey time.
All right, let's we got some more comments in here. Lex is in the chat. What's up? Lex wants to know Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, and add Elijah Mitchell as a stash. What are your thoughts?
Where was that? Drop
Khalil Herbert or Roshan Johnson to add Elijah Mitchell as a stash.
If you have Christian McCaffrey and you're pretty locked in for the playoffs, and those guys are your running back 5 and 6 and are just nowhere near your starting lineup, then I don't mind it. But if you look at your schedule moving forward with buys this week and next week, if those guys are 1 injury away from cracking your lineup, then I would keep them. But I mean, I have no problem dropping Roshan Johnson for Elijah Mitchell if I have CMC.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Chris in the chat. What's up, Chris? He's in a dire situation. Needs to win the last 2 to make the playoffs. Trade Taylor, Moss, and Saquon and one of the wide receivers for Kelsey, Connor, and Debo. So his other wide receivers he would have to trade then is McLaurin, Thielen, Deontay Johnson, or Rice. You get Kelsey, Connor, and Debo.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously getting Kelsey and Debo are nice.
You got to do what you got to do to win now. I mean,
it would depend on what your running backs look like, right? If you're trading JT, Moss, and Saquon, like what do your running backs look like if those are the three running backs you're dealing?
Yeah, I don't know. And who's your tight end, right?
Yeah.
The reason he's trading Saquon is because Saquon's on a bye.
He's got he has CMC, so you'd be stuck with just CMC and Connor as your only two running backs. I mean, I don't love that.
I don't know. I would think I would just start. Why not just start CMC and Moss and then start the wide receivers you have? I guess the question is who your tight end is. Let us know who your tight end is.
Yeah, if
maybe
you're starting Tyler Higbee or something out there, then maybe we'll talk about it.
Right.
Rushman, yeah, exactly. Keep the limits all the same. I love that. Uncle Ted saying, what's up? Our guy Matt in the chat. What do we think of A.T. Perry in a deep league for buys this week?
I'm in, man. I mean, like, you got to look around and see. Like, first of all, he already has a role. Even before the injuries, he was in the Michael Thomas role. In fact, he was playing more snaps than the other guys, right? He led the team in snaps the week before last. This week, obviously, led it with all the injuries. So, I mean, A.T. Perry was already playing a decent amount. So, if Shaheed's already out, if Michael Thomas is out, if Olave is out as well, then I'm in, right? I also think that Juwan Johnson is a sneaky play for people that have bye weeks this week. I recommended a lot of people add him off waivers last week, but if you're still unsure what to do or you're not loving the tight end that you have in right now, let me know who you got and I'll tell you if Juwan's better, because I mean, he led the team in routes run last week at 7 targets. So
Uncle Ted asking for an early start sick question here. Moss, Najee Harris, or Breece Hall. I'm going to go the first two running backs though in this one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing with Moss is he doesn't have the best matchup in the world, but he's going to get the full job,
Yeah, full job. And I mean, Najee Harris splits the job, but it's such a great matchup against Arizona that I think that both are in some good spots. And I just don't want anything to do with the Jets offense.
That game's going to suck, dude. We'll talk. Let's get into the matchups.
We got one more question. We'll get to that.
He's got McBride at tight end. Oh, McBride's on bye week. All right. Yeah. Well, who you playing? If the trade
got to win this week. So.
If the trade doesn't go through, who you starting, Chris? I honestly, if Juwan Johnson's sitting out there, I might just try and scrap through with what you have this week and keep it rolling.
Rushman wants to know: would we pick up Singletary? If so, would you drop Thielen, Hubbard, or Cooper? Singletary did look good again last week.
Singletary's got the worst possible schedule for the fantasy playoffs. Yeah. He's got
a good week this week, though.
Good week this week, but I mean, the teams he's playing in fantasy playoffs are literally number 2 in DVOA and number 3 in DVOA versus the run, and they're number 1 in so the Titans are number 2 in DVOA versus the run, and they've let up the fewest passes to running backs on the year. And the Browns are 3, and they've let up the 7th fewest passes to running backs on the year. And the schedule goes Titans, Browns, Titans. You couldn't possibly make a worse schedule for Devin Singletary down the stretch. So I don't think I would do that.
Yeah, McBride's not on a bye, by the way. They play Pittsburgh this week, so you still.
McBride is on a bye next week. Yeah, you're fine, man.
You're fine. Anthony wants to know Juwan Johnson, Logan Thomas.
Juwan Johnson.
And then Lex wants to know Charbonnet or do you drop Charbonnet for Watson and Downs? Or do you drop Charbonnet or Watson for Downs?
In a 10-man PPR league, I don't know if you're really going to be starting Downs. We like Downs, but he's more of a floor play than a ceiling play. I think I'd rather start I'd rather keep the guys you have.
Agreed. All right, cool. Let's give our sleeper picks for Thursday Night Football, and then let's get into this breakdown here. If you're not already with sleeper picks, you can download scan that QR code on the screen right there, or go to fanstorm.com/sleeper. Sign up. You get a 100% deposit match up to $100 there. Got to be done on your mobile phone. Sleeper picks only available on your mobile devices there. Coop, what are we looking at for this Thursday Night Football matchup between the Seahawks and Cowboys?
Yeah, so good news is they do have a pick on sale over there, 99% off. So what they do is, the way it works is you go out and you pick, they give you some numbers on how many yards guys will have, how many touchdowns, how many fantasy points at times. Yep. For Dak Prescott, what they're doing is normally his number for passing yards would be like 250 or something. In a game like this, maybe even higher. Yep. But this week it's 0.5. So you easily just click more on that one and lock that in. The one I'm picking, they got Tony Pollard. This one, they unlike some of the other sites, they have a million different options. So you can play this however you want, really. And what they do is give you different percentages, like different multipliers, right? So I looked at Tony Pollard rushing TD 1.97x, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what else they got? And there's a Tony Pollard anytime TD at 1.7. Only 0.2 difference there. And if he catches a pass, which a lot of times the pass is the extension of the run game for guys like this, I'm just going to go with the other one, right? So I'm taking the anytime 0.5, going more on that one. So, anytime Tony Pollard touchdown for me. What do you got, John?
I'm going Geno Smith, more than half an interception. He's got an interception 5 of the last 7 games here. He's got a couple of games of interceptions during that stretch here as well. So I think we know that Cowboys pass rush is going to get after Geno here. He's going to be throwing under duress, and that's going to lead to some mistakes. So let's go Geno Smith over the half interception for us today at 1.6x. So those are your sleeper fantasy picks for Thursday Night Football. You got that pick on sale right now. Dak Prescott over half a yard. Passing, you have Tony Pollard for Coop over anytime touchdown for 1.7x, and I got the over interception for 1.6x. Again, download the Sleeper app, scan that QR code, use promo code VAULT3 when you sign up there. You get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So, Coop, let's get into it. Let's get into our game breakdown, starting with that Thursday Night Football game here. Seahawks, Cowboys at home, giving 47.5 game total.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, I'm telling you, I love your Geno interception pick, and it's not even a question of if he throws a pick, it's a question of whether Deron Bland takes it back for a touchdown like he has all year long. So I'm feeling good about the Cowboys in this one. The line is set so high that I'm not going to probably bet on this one, I don't think. But for fantasy football purposes, I'm looking at Sharps. I'm looking at the interesting news coming out from Pete Carroll. He specifically came out and said we need to get Jackson Smith and Jigma more involved. So I wonder if maybe they're just going to run more 3 wide receiver sets. The tight ends really haven't been doing a whole lot. They've been rotating Noah Fant and Will Disley and Colby Parkinson. Those guys aren't doing anything. So they might as well just roll 3 wide. I think that's what they do this week. So JSN, definitely an interesting play for showdown slates, since Pete Carroll came out and said, hey, I want to get this guy the ball more. Usually they're not just making stuff up there. On the Cowboys side, Tony Pollard has really turned things around. He's been a lot more explosive lately, John. Do you believe in this one? I mean, it's hard to rank 5 running backs this week without having Tony Pollard in the top 5, right?
I mean, I think he obviously deserves to be in consideration. You just always have to worry about that they could just throw for all the scores, right? I mean, we've seen that happen the last couple of blowouts there. Now, we did get Pollard to get in the end zone recently, but, before that, he wasn't doing much because it was CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott show. So I agree with you. You kind of have to rank him where you have to rank him. You have to project him where you have to project him. You just have to hope the Cowboys sort of follow suit now with their game plan.
Right, yeah. Matt in the chat, Matt Deutsch makes a good point. Pete Carroll doesn't tell the truth. Kind of true. I mean, he doesn't follow through on it a lot of times. Like maybe he does want to get the guy the ball more, but it's not always that simple. So, and Pete Carroll is such a player's coach. One of the Chris Carson used to fumble every single game. There was a period where he fumbled 4 times in 3 games, and he didn't bench him. In fact, he got more carries the following weeks, and he had 300-yard games in a row. So Pete Carroll, one of those coaches, man. He's one of those guys.
We'll go on to the next game here, Coop. Colts -1 on the road here against Tennessee. It's a 42.5 game total. We talked already, Zach Moss there. Thoughts on the wide receiver position? Obviously, we know Pittman's there, but what's the deal with Downs and Pierce?
Yeah, so Pierce, the good thing for fantasy football is that Pierce plays a lot of snaps, but he's kind of the field stretcher, and it's clear that Minshew does not like really throwing the ball to Pierce, to be honest. Like he doesn't like pushing it down the field, and the tight ends on this team are pretty much useless. John, listen to this. Over the last 7 weeks, the target leader for this Colts tight end room is Will Mallory, and he has 7 targets. Okay. 7 targets over 7 weeks. So you can basically sit there and say, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, those are the guys, lock them in. So the Colts are actually pretty easy for me. I wish that since Pierce isn't really being utilized and they don't like throwing to him, why not flip it? Why not have Josh Downs stay out there for 2 wide receiver sets? And then when you go to 3 wide, you bring Pierce in and move Downs into the slot.
Maybe
I think
Pierce is the better blocker.
It's almost certainly the case, John. That's almost certainly the case because he's not the better pass catcher. We've seen it so far. So it could boil down to blocking. I just think that at this stage, if you're having trouble moving the ball, just you got to just throw your best guys out there.
Sure. Speaking of best guys out there, Derrick Henry came through for fantasy managers last week with the game we expected against the Carolina Panthers. There, multiple touchdowns. Going up against the Colts, another team you can run the football against. I think we see a lot of Derrick Henry here again for Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, 2 touchdowns last week. Somebody might have had him in some lineups, man. I could cash a bunch of lineups with the Derrick Henry and Mike Evans last week. But yeah, we're going with Derrick Henry. With the rest of these guys, it's tough to trust. DeAndre Hopkins, get your questions in on him because he's not playing the whole game. It's very strange, his usage for that team. Chikakonkwo is like battling for his job with Josh Wiley. So even though he's getting a couple targets, he's not playing the whole game. So tough to trust him. And you're not really going to use Will Levis outside of 2 QB leagues. And they got to be deep ones because, the thing with Will Levis is there's so many scrappy quarterbacks this week that it's hard not to rank him in a spot where he would be in lineups for 2 QB leagues, right? Because
you're definitely playing him. You're definitely playing him.
You got Ritter against the Jets. You got, Tim Boyle. We don't even know who's starting for the Patriots. Let's talk Patriots now. Right?
Yeah, that's fine. You have Chargers giving 6 on the road against New England here. It's a 41 game total. I mean, I don't even know what to do with the Chargers there at this point. Keenan Allen, and you lock him in, but that's the one thing Bill Belichick is going to try to take away from this offense here. Eckler's been average, right? Their offensive line's not that great. Quentin Johnson, can't really catch the football. Chargers have a lot of questions to be giving up 6 points. The problem is, so do the Patriots. That offense is terrible. I think they might even be throwing games at this point. We don't know who's going to be the quarterback. The running back situation feels safe. You can run on the Chargers, and they have had again success with Ramondre Stevenson now for back-to-back weeks. Ezekiel Elliott as a backup there. So for the Patriots offense, maybe it's just the running backs and nobody else. On the Chargers, Keenan Allen, and that's probably moving on from there as well.
Yeah, it's maybe Pop Douglas, but yeah, you're right. With the Patriots, it's you're just going with Mondre. And you can't start the defense either because they lost all their good players, and this is a tough matchup. With Austin Eckler, I'm kind of starting to see why they were hesitant to pay him because Kellen Moore, Joe Lombardi historically loves throwing the running backs. With the Lions, he threw to them 150 times. He, obviously was calling plays for Alvin Kamara, so it's easy to call those. And with Eckler, they threw to him a ton. Kellen Moore doesn't want to do that, and we're kind of seeing now that Austin Eckler was kind of living on that. He's never had a 1,000-yard rushing season. He's not super efficient between the tackles, so I think that's why they went that way. Is that he's just not the right person for this Kellen Moore offense. So I could see.
I mean, he's still on pace for 100 targets, but it's just not. I mean, if he was to play the full season, he would be, but it's not what we've seen in years past in terms of like the actual game planning to get him the football as a wide receiver this year.
Exactly. Yeah. He's just not as efficient. So yeah, I can see why they didn't want to pay him. Hopefully he goes somewhere next year where they utilize him and his skill set for what it is.
Yeah. Like Denver.
That would be perfect. Just go wherever Joe Lombardi is, right?
That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. Go to Denver.
Yeah. And as we finish on this one, I just want to say Gerald Everett, very difficult to trust. If you plan to use him for the bye week, let me know who's on your wire out there, folks, and we can fix that because I don't think you want to be rolling Gerald Everett out there. He's not a full-time player, and the Patriots have turned around their coverage versus the tight end. Kyle Duggar's doing a good job, so I really don't trust Gerald Everett this week.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's move on to Lions Saints. Lions given 4 on the road here, over under 46. The Saints wide receiver group's in trouble, right? Olave left that last game. Thomas didn't play. Is on IR now. Shaheed got hurt. I mean, we know where they're going with the Lions for the most part. I mean, what are we doing with the Saints in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it at the top of the show, but I mean, it's ugly. So if everyone's out, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get A.T. Perry at split end, and you're going to get Lynn Bowden as like the.
I could not believe I was seeing Lynn Bowden make plays in 2023.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
He looked good.
He does look good. I just say his tattoos are so jarring. That neck tattoo is like crazy, man. Every time I see him, I'm like, whoa. You know what I mean? So Lynn Bowden is probably going to be that guy. And then there's going to be Keith Kirkwood. So to me, A.T. Perry is the guy that I'm like, you know what? He already kind of earned the role here, the Michael Thomas role. I'm liking him. Lynn Bowden could be a DFS dart. And then Juwan Johnson is a legitimate spot start if you have bye week. So that's the way I'm handling this one. But I think it's going to be a really good spot for Alvin Kamara because,
Agreed.
Yeah, I think they're going to dial up a lot of screens and stuff for him.
Yeah. For the Lions side, again, I don't really feel like we got a good sense of how that game was going to go last week because it just went off the rails so quickly against Green Bay here. I think both running backs are still weekly starts. This week, this matchup for Jared Goff, I did put him in the quarterback coach, but I kind of didn't write anything too glowing about him. I was just like, yeah, he's fine on the slate that it is. There's bye weeks. He has some upside. If you like it, you can go there, but they could run the ball instead. So, he's probably a middling top 10 quarterback for me this week, but like not really anything I'm like certainly looking to go to if I don't have to in DFS for sure. And then the wide receivers, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's Sam Laporta, and I guess Jameson Williams, the guy that we're going to have to continue to look at as the season moves along.
Exactly, yeah. And the thing with Goff is that when Monty was hurt, he actually snuck a couple QB sneaks in there, which is very rare for him. He doesn't like to run in any capacity. But now that Monty's back and, Monty's giving Gibbs goal line touchdowns too, you don't get that little extra benefit because they're just not going to do that. So the Goff that you saw mid-season is probably gone. And this is the kind of Goff that you need him to throw 3 touchdowns or 300 yards because he does not run at all. Gibbs and Monty, I'm starting them both. I don't really care. And then, Jameson Williams, we're keeping an eye on him. He's starting to look like more of a field stretcher, unfortunately, which if his role doesn't change drastically, his route tree doesn't expand, then he's going to fall into that like best ball only category for us next year where guys like Rashid Shaheed live. You know what I mean? Where it's like.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of difficult for him to, at least for now, expand because of how effective one Amon-Ra St. Brown is and the target hog that he is. But also Sam Laporta sort of is a wide receiver, right? Like he runs at middle of the field routes. He runs, different different plays where they do use sort of Williams because of that speed to just open up the defense a little bit more for St. Brown and Laporta that are attacking the middle of the field there.
It's valuable for real life. It really is valuable for real life, but we don't get fantasy points when you take a safety with you so that Amon-Ra St. Brown can catch a drag route.
I agree. Falcons-Jets here. Falcons giving 2.5 to the Jets at home, 34 over under here. Praise be for Eric Bijan Robinson, right? I mean, the last couple of weeks for him, looking like the first round pick many fantasy managers were drafting, making impacts in the passing game. That catch was ridiculous last week. It's just the Jets defense, right? Can you trust Atlanta on the road here going up against New York?
Classic stubborn guy stuff from Arthur Smith, right? Just like do one thing, keep defending it, keep saying it, and then you quietly do what everyone's been telling you to do the whole time, and then you turn around and you're like, "Yep, we got it figured out." It's like, we just got to keep cyberbullying him into playing the players we want. So Kyle Pitts is next. Bijan, now that Bijan's up and running, let's get Kyle Pitts full snap share, get Johnny Smith out of there. Brutally tough spot for Ritter. But again, when I was doing my rankings at QB this week, which are up over at Fantasy Alarm for Fantasy Alarm members, every position, every format, it's hard to. I first thought to myself, I said Ritter versus the Jets. I'll put him last, right? But then I'm going through and I'm like, Tim Boyle. Okay, well, we got to move him up. And then I was looking through and I'm like, oh, geez, here's a Jake Browning. Well, I guess we got to move Ritter ahead of him. And then it's impossible not to have him ranked in the top 24 or so when there's only 26 teams playing this week, right? Mm-hmm. Which means in 2 QB leagues, I guess you got to use them, man. Would you use any of the scraggly quarterbacks? Like, would you use PJ Walker over him? Or just go with him?
Cleveland against the Rams, I might consider PJ Walker, but again, Ritter doesn't appeal to me in this spot because they're on the road. So
Browning or Ritter? See what I'm saying, dude? It's like, because there's 26 teams. You got to rank 2 guys behind Ritter for him not to be used.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? It's such a bad spot for him. What's his over-under for yards? Is it like 130?
I bet it's less than that. I'll tell you in a moment.
It can't be less than that, dude.
Why? We had what, 100 yards, something like that from Malik Willis last year.
You pull that up. I'll keep talking about the Jets. And the reality with the Jets is, you should know if you have to start these guys or not. It's not a good spot for anybody. The over-under for this game is 34, and I'm still willing to bet the under. But it's like Breece Hall, you start, Garrett Wilson, you start, or Jets defense. I'm not going to get cute with any of these guys, Xavier Gibson or whoever. It doesn't matter if Allen Lazard plays.
Ritter's 182.5.
182 under. How is he going to get 282?
I don't know. It's 182. Will Levis is 201. Russell Wilson being 211 also feels kind of low. But
I agree on that one. I was already looking at that one. But yeah, smash the under on Desmond Ritter passing yards this week. No chance.
Because the thing is also, it's not going to be a shootout. So they're not going to have like a need to throw the ball. They're not going to the Fighting Tim Boyles aren't going to be hanging big numbers on the Falcons here. So
no, dude, this is
I like both defenses in fantasy this week. I was able to grab Atlanta off the waiver wire, starting them this week against the Jets. So
yep. That's it for this game. I don't want to talk about this.
Oh, yeah, Cardinals-Steelers. So this one's kind of interesting, I guess. Steelers
like
given 5.5 at home, 41 over under. I want to talk about Steelers here. We'll talk about Arizona afterwards. I want to talk Steelers because new offensive coordinator came in. We got 270 yards passing out of what's his face down blank Kenny Pickett, and he completed over 70% of his passes. 0 passing touchdowns. They'll continue to be a big drawback to the Kenny Pickett experience here. But you had it. Freiermuth, monster day. The running backs, both of them, really good days here. So the offense looking a little bit more exciting. I also want to get your commentary on Deontay Johnson and his run blocking and effort on that fumble play.
That was gross, dude. But honestly, after the game, it didn't seem like they cared. I think it was just one of those things where he just didn't realize what was going on. I don't know, man.
He didn't even try to block on the run.
Didn't try to block on the run, yeah. And then he definitely wasn't paying attention. I don't know. Sometimes guys think they can just take a play off and you get caught. So that stinks for him, man. But he came out and said after that he had, despite that they were all having fun, that they felt more confident throwing the ball. A lot of folks around the team have implied that Matt Canada's playbook is very complex and it's very gimmicky and it takes a lot of stuff from college. And basically Kenny Pickett was regressing under it. Most of the guys didn't like the gimmickiness of it. So Eddie Faulkner came out with just meat and potatoes and just said, hey, you know what? Let's lean on the guys. Let's run the ball.
Throw the ball downfield.
Throw the ball downfield. Let's use our best players. So Pat Freiermuth getting 11 targets, 120 yards, led all pass catchers, not just tight ends, but all wide receivers as well, 120 yards for Freiermuth. So I like taking the over on the Kenny Pickett yardage total playing against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are kind of such a bad defense right now that they're kind of a choose your own adventure, right? Christian McCaffrey had 3 touchdowns if you want it. Jamar Chase had 3 touchdowns if you wanted to do that.
That's my biggest worry this week for Pickett is the fact that they don't have to throw. They can do it very easily. Give both running backs 15 plus carries and dominate this team on the ground. I also have Kyler Murray in my fade section of the quarterback coach this week because I don't like Arizona going on the road into Pittsburgh, a defense that can get after the quarterback, that can cause turnovers. And if that ends up being the case where the Steelers are playing from a lead, they're definitely not going to be throwing the football downfield given the running attack that they have. So I want to see what that number looks like for Pickett in terms of passing yards because remember, last week, one of the reasons they were throwing so much was because of how competitive that game was. If this doesn't end up being that, they'll just lean on the running game. Right.
And this is honestly, you have to factor this into some degree that based on the way the schedule is built, this is going to be the first really cold game for this team. They played at home last week. The week before that, they would play the Texans. The week before that, they were at home again. So they really haven't played a cold game the way it's cold in Pittsburgh. So it could be pretty rough. And I'll tell you what, this is actually, a lot of us have to start Trey McBride because we were pairing Trey McBride with guys like Dalton Kincaid, who is not playing this week, but it's not a good matchup for him. So I have a hard time not ranking him top 5, considering how ugly the landscape is this week with no Hawkinson and Likely and Kincaid and stuff. But I'm not going to use him in DFS. Let's put it that way, John.
I agree. See every you in chat. We appreciate all of you tuning in here today. If you want to throw a like down on today's live stream, that'll certainly help us out here with those YouTube algorithms. We'll be answering your questions shortly. We're just going to get through these game previews, and then we'll finish the show just rapid firing what you guys have. So don't go anywhere. Hang with us here. We're almost done going through these game-by-game previews, and we'll hit up your start-sit questions here momentarily. Dolphins-Commanders here, Coop. Dolphins give it 9.5. Commanders 49.5 game total in this one.
Yeah, Tua might throw for 500 yards. Tyreek Hill's gonna have like 200.
I have Tua as a cover to the quarterback coach, but he has very drastic home road splits this year. Now the opponent obviously might matter in that fact as well, but he's only averaging 15 fantasy points a game in his road starts this year.
Yeah, they got to find a way to pack up his bed and bring it with them. Right. You know what I mean? Just recreate his whatever, his room wherever they go. But this team, not only have they been terrible versus the past all year, but they just fired their defensive coordinator. They fired Jack Del Rio.
And DB coach. Both of them are gone.
Yeah, Jack Del Rio. He was the last player that was grandfathered in the last coach that was grandfathered in and allowed to wear a suit on the sideline. Fun fact there. Coaches, a lot of them used to wear suits. It was like a tradition. And then when Reebok took over, they had a deal with the league where everyone had to wear Reebok, right? And Belichick actually wanted to wear a suit. and they were going to make him one. And he was like, nope. And that's when he started doing the cutoff sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Just to spite them. But Jack Del Rio was grandfathered in. It's an end of an era. I don't think he obviously wasn't wearing suits still, but end of an era.
Is he still wearing a suit?
Last guy that was allowed to, but he should still be allowed to. So last guy that was allowed to, he's done here. But yeah, I mean, like, and the thing is, with the way that the Commanders have been, that's why they lead the league in passing, because the defense is so bad that you just come right back on the field. They've dropped back over the only team in the league to drop back over 300 times over the last 6 weeks, and it's like 340, right? So I got to ask you, John, as a QB guy, is Sam Howell good, or is he just the product of what's going on?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think if he had a better offensive line, he actually might be pretty good. Because I've seen him make some really good throws, but there's a lot of times where he makes mistakes because he's just under duress right away, right? If you're constantly running for your life, that's the one thing you and I, we look at Mac Jones every week. The man, when the rush is coming at him, he makes no plays. At least like Sam Howell, Gardner Minshew, these guys, when they do have a rush on them, they have the ability to sort of move, escape, and then still make some big throws on the run to extend drives. So Howell might actually be a good quarterback if he wasn't being sacked. He's on pace to set the NFL record for times being sacked. So, if he could just avoid that, he might actually be pretty decent here. But again, another guy on this DFS slate, Coop, he is the 7th and 8th highest priced quarterbacks on FanDuel and DraftKings, but he is averaging the 4th most fantasy points per game. So really good value in DFS this week with Sam Howell, because they're a 10-point underdog at home here. So one, they might actually play this game a bit more competitive if to his road split sort of bring that game down. It's a 49.5 game total. He's going to throw 40 plus times against the Dolphins secondary here. So could have a pretty good Sam Howell week in terms of fantasy and DFS this week.
49.5 point over under. Stack it up, baby. Let's go.
So I'm saying Broncos-Texans here. Another game with a nice over under. Houston giving 3.5. It's a 47.5 game total. I mentioned, I look at these Broncos. I look at the team. They're winning games. Sutton's looking good. But the numbers for Russell Wilson really aren't there. And I'm wondering if maybe this now matchup presents an opportunity for him to have a ceiling game. We know he's probably throwing a touchdown to Courtland Sutton, but his yardage being set at 211 in a game with a 47.5 game total doesn't feel like it adds up to me. If this is going to be a high scoring game, he has to be going over this total.
Yeah, and you know what it is, honestly, is that Russell Wilson is playing incredibly conservative football, right? So they've won 5 in a row. Over those 5 games, he has not thrown an interception, right? So they're winning these games, but he's just doing what has to be done. They run the ball well. He's only thrown for these are his last 5 games that they've won, all of them. 194 yards, 114 yards, 193 yards, 259 versus Minnesota, and then 134. But when you're not turning the ball over and the team's just playing conservative, moving the ball downfield, matriculating the ball down the field, then it doesn't really turn into a game that works for fantasy. So we need to see this one get to the point where he has to really put the game on his shoulders. Otherwise, there's going to be the same boring stuff here. We don't want the Broncos to be able to run all over the Texans, but it might happen. So, I mean, I'm still starting Sutton. I'm starting Russ if I have to. I'm starting Javonte, but I don't know. I just don't know if it's going to get there. I hope it does. Now, on the flip side, the Texans just lost an offensive lineman out for the year. So, a guy that missed the first 4 games of the season, his name escapes me right now, but not a good spot for them in terms of running rest of season. So they just lost one of their linemen rest of the season. Terrible playoff schedule for Devin Singletary. This is probably the last week I would consider starting Singletary, honestly.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, he made some nice games, plays in the passing game. So
right.
If they're going to utilize him as a pass catcher, which we know he can be, I actually don't mind Singletary. Pierce has just been ineffective all season long.
Well, so Adam Bernard says Titus Howard is the offensive lineman. The problem is, though, John, those playoff games, so the number 1 team in DVOA versus the run is the Jaguars, but they're letting up 7 receptions a game to the running back, which leads the league. That's why running backs can have success against the Jaguars. The Titans, who they played twice over the last 3 games, are number 2 in DVOA versus the run. They're also letting up the fewest receptions to a running back. That front 7 is just shut down.
But you also have to think about, Coop, not everybody has the luxury of not playing Singletary. So
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Right? If you're playing DFS, sure, don't play Singletary anymore. But if you're in a seasonal league, you kind of have to put him out there.
Well, we have a Singletary question in the chat. So let's look at that one and we'll figure out whether we play this guy or not. So Ethan Batterman says he has half-point PPR, needs 2 out of Singletary. It looks like it's one of them is going to be a flex at least. Singletary, Achane, Christian Kirk, and Tyler Algier.
Yeah, I mean, if Achane is healthy, I think you'd go Achane and Kirk in those groups. You're definitely not playing Algier, but what if Achane comes back and it's a three-headed monster, and it's Wilson getting carries, it's Achane, and it's Mostert? Wouldn't you rather Singletary in a tough spot than Achane getting 20% of the snaps?
Well, if that happens, then you just lose. Then you lose. That's what happens.
or the Texans' offense is good enough, and Singletary still
maybe. Okay, yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's crazy that I'm saying this because I've been the
not everything is
guy.
black and white, Coop. There's
I've been
everything.
I've been the Singletary guy the entire time. I was picking him in best ball, everything. I held on to him, and he was taking the job away before Dameon Pierce got hurt. So that's a plus. It's just the schedules kind of stinks. But I'll start him this week against the Broncos. And then who does he have on week 14? Week 14, he's got the Jets. So his season ends with Jets, Titans, Cleveland, Titans. I would probably start him against the Jets if he gets the full workload this week, but
sure,
kind of tough.
Yeah, I'm just saying sometimes you don't have the luxury of
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Not playing the guy. Yeah. Everything for Houston wide receiver wise, still just going Tank Dell.
Perfect. And here's the great thing for the schedule for Stroud and Dell and Nico Collins. I still like Nico Collins. Noah Brown, when he does get back, he's probably going to split with Robert Woods. So he's not going to be the Noah Brown we saw briefly there. But I'll tell you what, I still like Nico Collins and Tank Dell because the Titans were very good against the tight end, the second best team versus tight end. The Browns are the number one team versus tight end. So again, not good for running back and tight end that schedule, but the Titans are 28th in DVOA versus the pass. Right. So you're starting. It should be a great spot to throw the football, just not run the football.
Agreed. 4 p.m. games here. Buccaneers given 5.5 to 37 over under. Carolina fired their whole team. Then the owner went and threw everybody under the bus, claiming that they wanted to draft Stroud, but then they wanted Young instead. And we all heard the reports earlier this year that it was Frank Reich wanted Stroud, and it was actually Tepper that wanted Bryce Young. Made the move to get up to number 1 to draft Bryce Young, and has been an utter disaster ever since. And therefore, the entire Panthers offensive staff lost their job. Staley's gone, and obviously the head coach is gone there now. I don't think this gets any better for the Carolina anytime soon here, so I'm all in on Tampa Bay this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, I'm definitely in on him for fantasy football, but I know our own Howard Bender. I'm going to ask him about it on the next show. You guys might have a little bet here because I know he loves betting on teams.
Yeah, teams when they fire their coaches. Right? Yeah,
and they do cover the spread. They don't usually win outright, but they do cover the spread. And in 50% of the games, they actually do just outright win the game, which is crazy because if you're firing your coach, you're not a 500 team, right? So.
Right. I would be. I know the bet he's always talking about here. The stat he always quotes here. Again, I am just the Carolina. There's nothing good about the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. So here's how I'm treating it. I'm not going to use anybody in DFS because we don't know what changes are going to be made, right? Like we know that there will be changes. And I will say this, Adam Thielen, if you're an Adam Thielen guy, you don't want there to be any changes. Like, so hopefully they just continue to lean on him, but it could be a situation where now they say, hey, you know what? We're already not going to win this year. Let's see who's going to make this team. And they start, who's going to be part of the team moving forward. And they actually do see what Terrace Marshall and DJ Chark and these guys have.
Mingo some playing time.
I think but that could easily be the case. We've seen it before, teams doing live tryouts, and they could go even farther down the depth chart. That's the scary part. Like this team, they could start looking at, guys like Laviska Shenault and say, well, why don't we throw to Laviska Shenault a bunch today, and we'll see if he's going to be part of this team, because obviously that winning doesn't matter.
I'm excited for them to buy out Adam Thielen and let Thielen go to some playoff team here.
Yeah, that'd be so. Right. Last thing on this is I want to hold both Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders because they also fired the assistant coach, who also happened to be the running back coach, Deuce Staley. We do not know what Deuce Staley's opinion is on these players. There could be a possibility that he was Miles Sanders. The only reason Miles Sanders was playing still at all was because Deuce Staley. So it could be full Chuba Hubbard time, or it could be vice versa, where Miles Sanders was in his doghouse and Scott Fitterer says, hey, we paid this guy a bunch of money. I'm the GM. I'm still here. Now let's use the guy that I paid, and Miles Sanders plays a bunch. So we don't know. That's why you got to, if you can, stash him on bench spot. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think both guys are going to be on rosters regardless, because like you said, the depth of the running back position is pretty gross.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Baker, last week, he had the unfortunate instances of two wide receivers getting tackled down at the 1 yard line, Coop. Sometimes those are just the breaks. Mike Evans continued to be productive, though, so we have to at least enjoy that he is going to have another 1,000-yard season. It's just going to happen.
One way or another, right? That's the way it goes.
Every
single year. Every single year.
Maybe this week.
Yeah, I mean, I like them all. I like them all except Godwin has just been, I don't know, he's just not vibing with Baker, I guess. Everyone thought it was going to be the other way around where Godwin would be good and Evans would struggle, but hasn't really been like that. And I will say that a guy that I like, if you're so like, a guy like Juwan Johnson is a 1 week start. Like, let's say you have TJ Hawkinson out, sure, go just start whoever is a 1 week start because you're going to start Hawk rest of the season anyway. If your tight end spot is shaky and you have like Cole Kmet or even Dalton Kincaid with Knox coming back, Cade Otton is the guy I like because this guy has routinely been getting, 4 or so receptions a game. Right. Before this tough stretch, he had 6, 9 receptions. So Cade Otton, you could do a lot worse. Over the last 6 weeks, he leads all tight ends in route participation, 88%. So this guy is out there like every snap. He does block on pass plays a little bit, but he plays every single snap and runs a good chunk of the route. So Cade Otton is a guy I do like. He's a little boring, but and the other thing is, just like Dallas Goedert, if a wide receiver gets hurt, now all of a sudden Cade Otton has difference-making upside.
Browns-Rams here. Rams given 3.5 over under 40 in this one. Kyren Williams broke the slate last week, came back, did pretty much everything. He had 1 billion yards. They had no problem giving him the football, both in the passing game and the running game here. Tougher matchup, obviously, against Cleveland here, so maybe not the same level of success on his way, but have to love the fact that he came right back and was immediately the RB he was pre-injury here. The bigger questions are on Cleveland for me. Like, what's going to go on at the quarterback position? Obviously, David Njoku is looking great regardless of who's under center. And then you got Ford and Hunt still splitting carries.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Njoku was actually, it's not even necessarily regardless because he was getting 5.2 targets a game with Deshaun Watson and was not looking that good. With the backups, PJ and DTR, he was getting 8.6. So, yeah, again, I'm with you. I don't care which backup it is. He's getting the targets. But, yeah, Amari Cooper is the one that is tough to start. But, again, you get into that range of wide receivers where I start looking around and I'm like, do I just trust the star power here with Amari Cooper and Jamar Chase with the bad QB? Or do I start a player that I don't even think is that good, right? So There is definitely a line where you got to start. You got to decide, right? On the Rams side, it's easier because, Tutu Atwell lost snaps to Demarcus Robinson. You're not going to start Demarcus Robinson. You're not going to start Tyler Higbee. So it's just Kupp, Nakua, and Kyren Williams, and it makes our lives easy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Next game, 49ers-Eagles, 46.5 game total. 49ers are giving 2.5 on the road. Does that surprise you here, Coop?
No, I think this one to me feels like I feel like the 49ers are going to win this game.
Okay.
What do you think, John?
I feel it's a little surprising. I still like the Eagles here. I think the Eagles at home, I believe at some point that defense will get a little better. I get it. It's 13 weeks into the year and they haven't been better, but at some point they have to be a little bit better. Purdy didn't look all that great last week here. I still like the Eagles offense, even with A.J. Brown kind of having a down game, because the 49ers defense really isn't that great. So if you're talking about the Eagles having a little less resistance here offensively to do the things that they want to do, and you add in the home factor, I kind of like Philly here with the points, 2.5.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I can be sold on that. You're getting the points too, which is nice. I will say one thing. When I look around, I'm not going to name any names, but I care deeply about the tight end position. When I look around the industry, I can almost tell the people that do their tight end rankings this way. They pull up points versus the tight end on StatHead or even just DraftKings or whatever, and they look at that, and then they look at the tight end and they say, okay, this should be a good matchup, so I'll rank this guy too, right? And you see it around the industry a lot. And with Kittle, I caution that the Eagles were letting up a lot. They started the season letting up touchdowns to Hunter Henry and TJ Hawkinson and all these guys, and then they traded for Kevin Byard. And if you watch the game versus the Chiefs with Travis Kelce, Kevin Byard was giving him a hard time. I know he found his way into the end zone, but didn't really have Travis. If the Eagles are going to be a team that the numbers suggest are really bad against the tight end, Travis Kelce should have a much better game than he had, right? But when you watch the game, it's because there's a player on the team that wasn't on the team early in the season. So for me, George Kittle, you're going to start him where you have him, but I'm not ranking him at 2 behind Kelce this week.
Sure.
Because we've seen multiple times him come out with everyone healthy he's had one game where he got more than 3 catches. Every other game, 3 or less. And he's had games with 1 catch. So be very careful with George Kittle.
Any thoughts on the Eagles before we wrap up?
We already know, man. It's A.J. Brown, it's Devonta Smith, it's DeAndre Swift, and obviously you're starting Jalen Hurts everywhere.
Yep. Sunday Night Football, Chiefs-Packers. Chiefs giving 6 on the road, 42 over/under here. What are we doing with the Kansas City Chiefs passing attack right now?
Rashee Rice, dude. Hopefully, the thing with Rashee Rice is he got 100 yards, he had the touchdown, but they still, when I went back to look and I was like, oh, he was, because I saw him all over the place when I'm watching the game. I'm like, he must have played the whole game. And I looked at the numbers. No, he only played 40 snaps out of 60. And he led the team. They really do just like to mix and match, which is super annoying for fantasy. So I'm starting Rashee Rice where I have him. He's just, when he's out, John, you were saying it the whole time. It's like when he was running 10 routes a game, he was catching six
literally
passes,
getting, because he's getting open and Mahomes throws to him whenever he's on the field. So
exactly. So it's like, if I'm a defense, I look over and I see him jogging out. I look around at everybody. I'm like, obviously he's getting the ball here. It's like Tyler Algier when he goes in the game for the Falcons. It's like he plays 12 snaps and gets 10 carries. Like when he goes in the game, the defense can just look around and say, oh, we know he's getting the ball, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I wish he would just play the whole game, but Rashee Rice, you start. Travis Kelce, you start. Justin Watson, dart throw, John, DFS.
Yeah, of course. He was a dart throw last week for many. He found the end zone. So it was the only catch he had, but still came through.
They like him. He's a good blocker. I think that's a big part of what it is. It's like Byron Pringle Sammy Watkins and Byron Pringle routinely ranked among the top blocking wide receivers in the league. They like having that guy.
Those guys still would frustratingly get targets and catches, and you'd be like, Byron Pringle, really? Well, that's what we feel like with Justin Watson.
Exactly, dude. So that's the situation there. On the other side of the Packers side, Aaron Jones still waiting on an update there, but they just re-signed James Robinson again, so not a good sign for Aaron Jones. AJ Dillon. The thing with Dillon is he's the worst handcuff there ever has been, because he doesn't get the full job when the other guy gets hurt. Like that's the whole. It's like with the Patriots. We always would draft him and say, oh, if this guy gets hurt, James White's going to be the whole full guy. It would never happen. And that's what happens here. AJ Dillon got all the run work, but Patrick Taylor ran double his routes. Patrick Taylor is now the pass down back for the team. So Patrick Taylor, sneaky.
Yeah, possibly running back pickup for sure. Jaden Reed looked great, obviously. Christian Watson looked great in the Thanksgiving Day game there as well. So I think you can continue to play both of those guys. You figure they're going to be down against the Chiefs. They're going to have to throw. Both of those guys can be playmakers here for Green Bay.
Right. And with those guys emerging, Tucker Kraft isn't super interesting to me.
Sure. I mean, he found the end zone, was the dart throw min-price play on Thanksgiving, but that probably is the extent of it. Last game here, Monday Night Football, Bengals-Jacksonville. Obviously, there's no Joe Burrow, so this game is far less exciting. Jacksonville, an 8.5-point home favorite, only a 38 over/under in this one. Trevor Lawrence, back-to-back good games. Travis Etienne had, I think, 5 touches within the 5-yard line and wasn't able to score a touchdown last week, Coop. So that was
They should. I know it's tough on people that like going to these games, but they should have a little more ability to flex the games, because like the Texans have like no primetime games, but they're a fun team to watch, right? Whereas like once
Joe Burrow goes out, you should be flexing the Bengals out.
When Aaron Rodgers went down, think how many times I've watched the Jets in primetime this year. Think about how many times
the Broncos went in primetime a bunch.
Last year I had to watch the Broncos in primetime like 10 times, dude. I'd watch them on Christmas, man. Like, if they should be able to have a little more flexibility. I know it sucks for people that are trying to plan, but I mean, maybe you can only flex 4:00 games to the night game. Then that's okay. That's not the end of the world. But yeah, so I mean, with this game, you know what you're doing. You have to start chase where you have to. You have to start mixing where you have to. But beyond that, I'm not touching any of the Bengals. I don't care. Tanner Hudson only ran 13 routes last week out of 33, so I'm not starting Tanner Hudson. Yep. And then with the Jaguars, you're starting Kirk, you're starting Ridley, you're starting Etienne, you're starting Lawrence, you're starting Ingram. The only problem is it's there's so many guys, it's not consolidated enough, man. Evan Ingram has to score a touchdown at some point. Let's try and hit on a couple chat questions before we jump out, John, or are we out of time?
I just threw the link in chat. You and Bender got a lot of fantasy football coming up next. So guys, if you have your trade questions today,
we do it all. We're doing
them all. You got trade questions, waiver wire starts it. You got Bender and Coop coming up next. Apologize, we weren't able to get to everybody's questions as we usually do here this week, everybody. But again, go get in on the next show. Bender and Coop are only answering your questions coming up next. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Star family, now's the best time to do so as well. You can sign up. Coop's being hit right now. Scan that QR code. Use promo code HURRY and save yourself a whole bunch of money on the annual subscription package there. Our month-to-month cost is about $40 a month. You get the annual subscription right now with our all-pro annual cost at $16 a month. So a ridiculous savings. Scan that QR code there on the screen. Go to facetime.com/win/cyberweek/annual. One of those three gets you over to the annual package, and use that promo code HURRY to get yourself a great deal. And like Jack Sensen just said there, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We go live all day, every day. I'll be back live 5 o'clock Eastern for an NBA DFS show. Yeah, Coop and Bender coming up next. Good luck in week 13, everybody. We'll talk to you later.